5 years after Elijah Mitchell vanished in the Appalachian woods, we found his body. But it was his body camera, its battery inexplicably still charged, that held the real horror. The footage shows Elijah terrified as the forest around him begins to glitch. The trees flicker, and for a few seconds we see through them to a nightmare landscape of jagged rock under a purple sky. He wasn't just lost, he was trapped somewhere else, a place pressing up against our own. In his final, ghostly whisper, he looks into the lens and says, "It's beautiful, and it's hungry. It's looking back through the tear." And now the town's power has just gone out. Before we go any further, if this is your first time here, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support means the world and helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Stick with us until the end, and if this mystery moves you, share your thoughts in the comments and pass it along to a friend. The Appalachian Mountains. They hold a silence that's different from anywhere else. It's an old silence, deep and watchful. For 5 years, that silence swallowed a man named Elijah Mitchell. But let's start at the beginning, back when he was just a man in the woods, not yet a ghost story. Sound of body cam being adjusted, a soft click, breathing. The footage is peaceful at first. You see the world through Elijah's eyes, his hands rough and capable, adjusting the strap on his rifle. He's smiling, a little crinkle at the corner of his eyes. The air is crisp. You can almost smell the pine and the damp earth. Okay, recording. Day 3. Still no sign of that 8-point buck, but the forest is singing today. Just listen. He goes quiet, and you hear it, the gentle chorus of the woods. It feels safe. Gonna head off the main trail, up towards Blackfeather Ridge. Got a feeling about it. He moves with a hunter's grace, his boots making soft thuds on the leaf litter. The light is dappled golden. This is the last picture his family would ever have of him, alive and at peace. Sound of shift to office ambience, a distant phone ringing, a fan whirring. Cut to 5 years later. The sheriff's office in the little town of Oak Ridge. Sheriff Ben Graham, he's got that look of a man who's carried too many secrets for too long. He's pinning a new faded flyer over an old faded one. Same face, Elijah Mitchell. His deputy Leah Carter watches him. She's young, sharp. She grew up on these stories. His wife Maria, she still calls, every month. The first of the month like clockwork. Her voice always has this tiny, fragile hope in it. It's the worst part. Sheriff Graham just sighs, a heavy, weary sound. He doesn't even look at the poster anymore. Some woods, Leah, they don't like to give up their secrets. They swallow people. Men like Elijah, they become ghosts of these woods. Part of the silence. You can see Leah doesn't buy it. Not fully. She thinks it's a cop-out. But what can she do? Sound of geocache's beeping device, footsteps crunching on leaves. Now shift the scene. Deep in a ravine, a place the locals call the Stone Mall. A couple of geocaches, led by a woman named Chloe, are following the signal on her GPS. It's beeping frantically. It's right here, the Devil's Dice box. Man, these names they give these things are so dramatic. They push aside a thick curtain of ferns and moss, their hands getting dirty. But they don't find a little plastic box. The signal is coming from something else. One of them, a guy named Mark, freezes. He pulls back a handful of vines and lets out a choked gasp. Chloe, don't come over here. But it's too late. She sees it. The sun-bleached, weather-worn bones of a skeleton, still dressed in the tattered, moss-eaten remnants of hunting gear. Orange vest, camo jacket, and nestled right there, in the cage of its ribs, as if it was placed there, is a body camera. It's sleek, modern, and impossibly clean. No dirt, no scratches. It looks like it just came out of the box. Chloe's scream doesn't just cut through the forest silence. It shatters it, and in the sheriff's office miles away, the phone rings. The 5-year-old mystery of Elijah Mitchell was about to be reopened and twisted into something nobody could have ever imagined. The bones were bagged. The scene was documented. Back in the stark, fluorescent-lit evidence room, the air tasted like stale coffee and dust. Elijah Mitchell was no longer missing. He was a case number, a set of remains laid out on a cold steel tray. Sheriff Graham placed the body cam on the table between him and Leah. It looked alien there, a piece of sleek black plastic among the weathered personal effects. Coroner's report is in. It's him. Positive ID. Cause of death. Inconclusive. No trauma. No animal marks. Nothing. Just his body gave out, like he laid down in that ravine and decided to stop living. He nudged the camera with a tired finger. But this is the part I can't wrap my head around. The text said the battery was still at 78%. 78%, Leah. After 5 winters in the stone moor. How is that even possible? Leah didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the little device. It felt heavy, not in weight, but in significance. Sound of a single keyboard click, the whir of a computer fan. Later that night, long after the sheriff had gone home to his own ghosts, Leah sat alone in the evidence room. The only light came from the computer monitor, painting her face in a pale blue glow. She couldn't sleep. The pristine camera was a splinter in her mind. With a deep breath, she plugged it in. The drive mounted with a soft chime. A single video file appeared, labeled with the date. Elijah vanished. Her cursor hovered over it for a long moment, then a click. Sound of forest ambience from the recording, slightly distorted. The footage bloomed to life. It was so normal. There was Elijah's voice, so clear and present. It was like he was in the room with her. He was tracking, his breath a little ragged from a climb. The sun was low, casting the woods in a deep orange hue. And then, a sound, faint at first, just at the edge of hearing. A low subsonic hum. It wasn't a natural sound. It felt electronic, organic, wrong. On screen, Elijah stopped dead in his tracks, his head cocked. "Hun, you hear that? What in God's name is that?" He turned, the camera panning smoothly across a grove of ancient oaks. Leah leaned in, squinting. There, for just a fraction of a second, behind the largest tree, the air shimmied, like heat haze on a summer road, a brief liquid wobble in reality. She almost missed it. She wrote it off as a lens flare, a trick of the dying light. Sound of Leah's quickened breathing, her chair creaking as she leans closer. She kept watching, now completely hooked. The footage jumped to night. Elijah was clearly lost, his movements jerky, panicked. The hum was a constant oppressive presence now, a vibration you could feel in your teeth, even through the computer speakers. He fumbled with his headlamp, switching it on. The beam cut through the darkness, and Leah's blood ran cold. For 3, maybe 4 seconds, as the light swept across the trees, they became transparent, not see-through, but insubstantial, and through them she saw a landscape that was not of this earth. Jagged, obsidian rock formations speared a sky the color of a fresh bruise, a sickly, luminous purple. There was no moon, no stars, just this eerie ambient glow. No, that's not there. That can't be there. Her hand flew to her mouth. She rewound, paused, zoomed in. It was undeniable. The familiar Appalachian forest was there, but layered over it, bleeding through like a double-exposed photograph, was this other place. This wasn't a story about a hunter who got lost. This was something else entirely. And in the quiet of the evidence room, Leah realized the true horror hadn't been Elijah's disappearance. It was what he had found. Dawn was bleeding gray light through the blinds. When Sheriff Graham found her, Leah hadn't moved. The cold, half-finished coffee he placed beside her hand went ignored. Her eyes were red raw, fixed on the frozen image on the screen, that impossible purple sky. He wasn't lost, Ben. He found something. She gestured weakly at the monitor, her hand trembling slightly. A tear, a fold, right here in our woods. The camera, it recorded 2 places at once. It saw our world, and it saw that. Sheriff Graham leaned in, his brow furrowed. He stared at the crystalline landscape superimposed over the familiar oaks and pines. He let out a long, slow breath. Leah, come on. That's a glitch. Sunspot interference. A corrupted file. Something. It has to be. This is science fiction. And the battery. Huh? How do you explain a 5-year-old battery that's still 3/4 full? It didn't drain, because time moved differently, wherever he was. He wasn't in our woods for 5 years. He was trapped in that in-between place for a few days. Our time just slid right past him. The logic of it was chilling, airtight in its own terrifying way. Graham fell silent, his cop brain warring with everything he knew to be real. Sound of the forest recording resuming, Elijah's panicked, ragged breathing. Back on the recording, Elijah's situation was becoming dire. His movements were sluggish, his voice a dry croak. The shimmering zones in the forest were more frequent now, larger. They pulsed with a low, thrumming energy you could feel through the footage. He stumbled, falling to his knees in a small, unremarkable clearing. And here the effect was constant. The very air in the center of the clearing wavered and swam, like a heat mirage you could walk through. With a trembling, desperate hand, Elijah reached out. His fingers, cracked and dirty, stretched towards the center of the distortion. The camera lens seemed to struggle to focus, the image blurring at the edges. The moment his fingertips made contact, sound of a piercing, painful digital screech that then cuts to absolute dead silence. The audio exploded into a deafening digital shriek, a sound of reality tearing, and then nothing, a vacuum of silence. The video glitched, pixels scrambling violently. When the image stabilized, Elijah was lying in the ravine, the same ravine where his bones were found. But everything was wrong. The forest was utterly, profoundly silent. No birds, no insects, no wind. It was a dead world. He looked at his own hands, and a choked sob escaped him. Because his hands, they were flickering, phasing in and out of solidity, like a bad hologram. He was there, but he wasn't. He was a ghost in both worlds. I'm still here, but I'm not. I can feel the ground, but I can feel the other ground too. It's cold, so cold. I'm somewhere else. Sound of an EMF meter whirring to life, its beeps rapid and erratic. Hours later, Leah and a deeply reluctant Sheriff Graham stood in that same ravine, the stone moor. Leah held a sophisticated EMF meter. It wasn't beeping calmly. It was screeching, the needle pinned deep into the red, spiking with frantic, erratic energy. The air was thick, heavy. It was hard to breathe. It's here, right here. Can't you feel it? The silence, just like in the video. Sheriff Graham said nothing. He just stared at the spot where Elijah had reached out. He could feel it, a pressure in his ears, a cold spot in the warm air. The hair on his arms was standing up. The wild goose chase had just become a nightmare, and it was real. The tear was still here, and it was open. The drive back from the ravine was utterly silent. No radio, no conversation, just the hum of the engine and the weight of an impossible truth pressing down on them. Sheriff Graham stared straight ahead, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Leah watched the ancient trees slide by, and for the first time, they didn't feel familiar. They felt like a mask. Sound of the evidence room door closing, a lock turning. Back in the evidence room, the atmosphere was funereal. Graham methodically unloaded his service weapon, his movements precise, ritualistic, a way to ground himself in a reality that was rapidly dissolving. We seal the file. Today, we tell Maria, we tell her we found him, that he fell, that it was quick. We give her a body to bury, and an answer to hold on to, and we never ever speak of this again. Graham, he said it was looking back. We can't ignore that. We have a responsibility. Our responsibility is to this town, to not start a panic about silent forests and holes in the sky, to not have every conspiracy theorist and ghost hunter descending on us. We bury it. Leah looked away, her jaw tight. She knew he was right, in a way, but she also knew she couldn't unsee what she had seen. Sound of the body cam footage resuming, but the audio is muffled, distorted. She had to know the rest. Alone at her desk, she pressed play on the final chapters of Elijah's life. The footage that followed was soul-crushing. Elijah was a phantom in his own world. He stumbled towards a pair of hikers on a trail, his mouth moving in a silent scream for help. They walked right through him, shivering slightly and commenting on a weird cold spot. He tried to grab a low-hanging branch to steady himself, and his hand passed through the solid wood. He was starving, not from a lack of food, but from a fundamental incompatibility with our reality. His body was literally physically fading, becoming less substantial with every passing hour. Sound of a faint, ragged breath, the rustle of fabric. In his final moments, he had crawled back to the ravine, the place where the veil was thinnest. He slumped against the same moss-covered rock where his bones would be found 5 years later. He was so translucent now that La could see the patterns of the lichen through his body. He looked directly into the body cam, his eyes wide with a terror that had long since burned down to a numb, heartbreaking acceptance. His voice was a ghostly whisper, barely audible over the dead silence of the woods. I saw it, the other side. It's beautiful, in a terrible way, and it's hungry. It's looking back through the tear. It knows we're here. He took one last shuddering breath, His image flickered, a candle flame in a strong wind, and then vanished. Not like he disappeared, but like a TV signal being permanently cut. One moment he was there, the next, there was only the empty, silent ravine. The camera remained, dutifully recording nothing. Leah sat back, her hand over her mouth. She wasn't crying, she was too horrified for tears. Elijah Mitchell hadn't died of exposure. He had been erased, unmade by a reality that could no longer hold him. The mystery was solved, but the horror was just beginning. Because if something was looking back through the tear, what would happen if it decided to step through? The final frame of Elijah's life glowed on the monitor, an empty, silent ravine. The truth was a physical weight in the room, suffocating and absolute. Leah and Sheriff Graham just stared, the hum of the computer, the only sound between them. That's it. It's over. We seal the file. We tell Maria he fell, got lost, that he didn't suffer. We give her a story she can live with, and we take the real one to our graves. He looked older, the lines on his face carved deeper by the impossible burden. He said it was looking back, Graham. We have to do something. Tell someone. Who? Leah. The FBI? The guys in black suits from the movies. And say what? That we have a haunted patch of dirt that eats people. Our job is to protect this town from things we understand. This is beyond us. He reached for the computer mouse, his finger hovering over the button to eject the footage, to delete it forever. Sound of a sudden, violent power dip, lights buzzing down to nothing, then the thump whir of a backup generator kicking in. And then the world went dark. The main lights died, with a sickening fizzle, plunging the room into blackness. A second later, the emergency backup generator kicked in with a jarring thump whir, bathing everything in a dim, pulsating crimson glow. The sheriff's radio on his belt erupted in a storm of panicked, crackling voices. Power grid is down across the whole town, Ben. No cause. Weird interference on all channels. In the bloody half-light, Leah's eyes were wide, fixed on the sheriff. It's not a coincidence. Sound of the camera slowly panning over the town, then into the silent woods. Eerie, ambient music begins to swell. The perspective pulls back, leaving them frozen in that red-lit room. It soars out the window, over the town of Oak Ridge, now a constellation of confused flashlights and car headlights in the unnatural darkness. The camera sweeps over the confused, upturned faces of people spilling into the streets, their chatter a distant, worried murmur. Then it moves into the woods, the deep, dark, ancient Appalachian woods. It glides over the canopy, a silent predator, heading with grim purpose towards the Stonemore ravine. The forest here is different. The normal night sounds, the crickets, the owls are gone, replaced by that same dead vacuum silence from Elijah's final footage. We descend into the ravine. The moon, now uncovered by clouds, casts a sickly silver light on the moss and stone. There, in the exact spot where Elijah faded from existence, where Leah and Graham stood just hours before, the air begins to move. It's a vertical pool of liquid mercury, rippling and swirling, and through it, the view changes. For a terrifying, sustained moment, we see through the tear. The jagged, crystalline rock formations of that other world are clear now, sharp and menacing under the luminous purple sky. Then a shadow falls over those alien crystals. Something tall, impossibly slender and elongated, moves with a jerky, unnatural grace. It pauses, its form a silhouette of sharp angles and wrong proportions against the purple glow. It knows it's being watched. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, it begins to turn its head. There are no features we can make out, just a shape that should not exist, that defies the very logic of anatomy. It doesn't complete the turn. It stops, its head tilted at an angle that screams of a curiosity that is not human. A predator assessing a new threshold. It is looking back. The screen holds on the shimmering tear and the silhouetted figure for a beat too long, then cuts to black. Sound of the eerie ambient music cutting out abruptly, leaving only a final deafening silence. Fade to black. The Appalachian Trail stretches over 2,000 miles. How many other tears are out there, waiting to be found? Stay curious, but remember, sometimes it's better not to look back. If this story left you with more questions, like and subscribe for more tales from the shadows.